like they didn't have to come for the whole time. So I wonder.
That's true. You're right. I forgot about that. Some people just have meetings after work or school or something. So, okay, that's a good idea. I'll just, we'll get started then. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I'm really grateful that you would get together on such a nice day. So we will make it worth your while. I'm Judy Haddon, and I'm a member of the Youth Mental Health and Wellness Committee, and also a member of the Student Services, the APS Student Services Advisory Committee. And does everybody know what those Youth Mental Health and Wellness falls under? The Partnership for Children, Youth and Families, and then Student Services falls under AC Advisory Committee on Teaching and Learning, right? ACTL, right? And let's see, this is, so this is a committee of the Youth Mental Health and Wellness is a committee of the Partnership for Children, Youth and Families. And we can tell you more about the partnership if we get some time. My son and daughter went through Arlington schools. My daughter's a teacher in Arlington schools, who's a friend of Jenny's. And then I have 3 local grandchildren who are in first grade, 3rd grade, and Swanson, or 6th grader at Swanson. And then I have 3 others that are up in Arlington, Mass. So, but I have 3 local grandchildren, which is great. Get to see them quite a bit. So why don't we, if we can, just go around and introduce yourselves. Let's start with Kristen Devaney.
Okay, hi, everybody. My name is Kristen. I am supervisor of counseling services with Arlington Public Schools. And I also have 2 children, one who graduated from Washington Liberty and another student who attends Washington Liberty now.
Look up the phone number, call them and say, you know, a friend said you gave a great talk at the
Can you mute yourself? I think we're picking up some background sound.
how to access this. What can you do to help?
Here we go.
Now we're good. All right, Jackie.
Hi, Jackie Snelling. I'm currently mostly affiliated with Civic Federation, but I basically attend all of the mental health related youth and adult meetings that I could possibly attend. So following Marcus Alert and CSV and various others. And I have 2 adult sons who graduated from Arlington schools.
Thanks, Jackie. Kirsten?
Hey, I'm Kirsten Pickle, and I'm a social worker, and I've been on the Student Services Advisory Committee for a few years. I was co-chair with Judy a few years ago, and then I've come to some of these meetings, and I've been coming more often. And I have a son that was going to several different, well, we switched. We were in the Spanish immersion key school at Arlington Public Schools, and we went to our local neighborhood school. And during the pandemic, he's now at an independent school. But anyway, I love kind of doing public education on social and emotional learning. So I'm always interested in how we can reach more people and help them be, I guess, emotionally and socially and mentally well.
Thanks, Kirsten. Susan?
Hi, I'm Susan Russo. I'm a school counselor at Thomas Jefferson Middle School. And I have two children in Arlington schools as well. I have a 9th grader at Arlington Tech and an 11th grader at HB.
Wow, you don't look old enough to have those kids that age, those ages. Sorry.
You just made my day. Thank you. I sure am.
Elise,
Hi, I'm Elise Kenny. I am the Director of Counseling at Williamsburg Middle School. This is my, I think, 13th or 14th year in school counseling, and I've been a middle and elementary school counselor.
thank you so much. Jenny?
Hi, I'm Jenny Lambden. I'm a school psychologist. I'm housed at Ashland Elementary School, but I also support student services as a 504 coordinator. And I am one of the instructors for youth mental health first aid. I've been in APS since 2007. And I also have 2 children, but they don't attend Arlington Public Schools.
Thanks, Jenny. John?
I'm John Andelin. I'm a member of this committee and the partnership itself, also the Community Foundation. And in that role, for the next 3 weeks, I'm reading 300 scholarship applications. A lot of our kids are really wonderful.
Thanks, John. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, I'm Lisa Cowan. I'm a NAMI volunteer and also a member of the ACTL Student Services Advisory Committee. I think I'm co-chair.
You're co-chair. Thanks, Elisa. Hey, Marguerite.
Hi, I'm Marguerite Tomasek, and I'm a volunteer on this committee, and I'm on this Youth Mental Health Committee also under the CSB. And I had 2 kids who did not make it through the Arlington Public Schools. And, it's just interesting to see how everything has come along and how hard everybody has worked on this. So it's been a real process to watch this. It's been fun. It's been good.
Thanks, Marguerite. Kathy?
I'm Kathy Panfill. I long ago, before my retirement, I was a teacher. I was central office, and I was also a principal in Arlington schools. Today, I'm the hats that I'm trying to wear are, one is a member of Arlington Mental Health and Disability Alliance. I'm trying to bring a little news from a couple of other groups. The other group is Voice, that's Virginians Organized for Interfaith Community Engagement.
Great. Thank you, Kathy. Lynn?
Hello, everyone. My name is Lynn Ngay, Prevention Director with DHS and Interim Coordinator of the Partnership.
Thanks, Lynn. Danielle?
Hello, hi, my name is Danielle Johnson, and I'm with Arlington Partnership for Affordable Housing. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you, Danielle.
No problem.
You are recent to over at, you recently began your work over at?
Yes, ma'am. I just became one of the new resident service managers overseeing the health and wellness senior support pillar.
Great.
Yeah, so I'm very excited to hear some health resources.
Great. Thank you, Danielle. Sally, are you there? I don't know if she is there.
She said she's on mute because she's with her child at
Oh, got it.
piano.
Yeah. Alicia? Oh, she's, yep, you're there.
Yeah, I'm here, sorry.
Sorry.
Hi, everyone, Alicia Guajardo. I am served on this committee since I think it's been around, and also a member of the partnership. I also have been on the Student Services Committee over a number of years as well in different roles. The last couple of months, I've been pretty much not participating for health reasons, but trying to get back into things. So glad to be here.
We're glad you're here. Good
Thanks.
to see you. Let's see, where are we? Shakti? Are we going to be able to hear you?
She introduced herself on the because I don't think she
Oh,
can
okay.
unmute, but she attended APS schools, and she has 2 4th graders and a 1st grader at Cardinal.
Yes. Thank you, Shakti. Megan?
Hi there. I'm sitting in my car at a soccer practice. I'm Megan Mack. I have a daughter at HB Woodlawn, and I'm currently chair of the partnership. And Alicia, it was really nice to see you on video.
Yes. And Mary Sanders?
Hi, I'm Mary Sanders. I'm the coordinator for the Healthy Community Action Team, and I also have a son at Taylor in 2nd grade.
Mary, I'm glad you could be here. I know she's juggling a lot. Her husband's out of town all week. We all know about those kinds of things, huh? Kids are in the background and all that stuff. Thanks, Mary. Did I get everybody? I think we got everyone. All right, I want to make sure we have plenty of time to hear from the people, our guests here tonight. So what we're hoping to learn more about is what you're seeing in the schools, what your concerns are in terms of kids' mental health and wellness. What you need, what seems to be working, what help do you need? What can a group like this do to, what am I trying to say? To tell others how much more you need. So if you could just give us a picture of kind of what it's like and what's going on, what you're working on, what you need, and anything else you think would be important for us to know, that would be wonderful. Thank you. Susan, do you want to, or Kristen, do you want to introduce people or no? Probably not. It's probably okay. We can just go. Should we just go ahead?
Yeah, just go ahead. I mean,
Okay.
I'm just so thankful that, I mean, you're, such a group, as you can see, of such devoted and skilled professionals. So I'm just glad that we're coming together tonight. So thanks.
I know, we're lucky. Okay, Susan. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, so no, thank you for the invitation. And this is great to see all these people that I've heard the different committees and all of that, and to know what you're doing a little bit more is helpful for us too. So I think I'm a 6th grade school counselor, so I get to stay with this cohort until they head off to high school. And they are an amazing bunch of students, and I think have shown an amazing amount of resilience for all that they've gone through in the last few years. I think some of their wellness strengths are that they are so excited to be back to school when they can be, and they are all about making relationships with teachers and with each other and with me. And so that's really awesome to see. I think they're maybe we see a little bit behind developmentally in learning how to be back at school and following the rules and, all of that stuff, because they're excited to be there. So I think we're doing a little bit more explicit teaching of those social skills and how to express those feelings and that kind of thing, where to express those feelings. So there's a little bit more teaching with the social emotional going on. So that's just kind of the big picture view. It's interesting. I've heard kids, just as an aside, I haven't heard them use the word. I've been doing this almost 20 years, and I haven't heard kids use the word lonely so much. So it's interesting that, you'd think that would be a word they would have used before, but maybe it's a word that, during the pandemic that they really learned and experienced during the pandemic. So I've had several kids come to me lately and said they felt lonely. So I guess we just need to keep working on whatever we can do to build relationships and bring those community connections back. And then I will say I'm noticing more this year at a young age with substance abuse experimentation. And I feel like that is a bigger problem this year than at least I was aware of in the past. So I believe Lynn, I wrote down your name. We can get connected later with some prevention ideas for those students, because I have
That'd
a
be
lot of
great.
students who are worried about others
Yeah.
at my school.
Thank
as
you.
well. Thank you. Oh, and then just one last thing, sorry to ramble, but I do know, I don't know, how much you all can help with this, but we definitely are feeling, how hard it is to have so many students in need of community services and just, such long waiting lists. So, if you could just magically grow some more therapists in the area and have more services instantly be available to our kids, that would be awesome. Thanks for all your support.
Yeah, I wish we could do that. That would be great. All right, Elise, shall we just get started with you?
Sure.
Actually, it looks like John's got his hand. I'm sorry, jump in. It
Oh,
looks like
John,
John's
John,
hand
I'm
is up.
sorry.
I'm not sure if
I'm not good about seeing all this stuff.
I was just
I'll
gonna
mind the room
say
for you.
that
Thanks.
the experience of the Second Chance program is that there is more use this year, and kids are using substances at a much younger age. Our youngest kid this year, I think, was 12. And so you will be seeing in middle school some students that might actually benefit from that program. Parents could admit they don't have to get in trouble first. So advertisement, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, John. Marguerite, did you have a question or something?
I have more of a comment. Have you been in touch with DHS, the Children and Youth committees over there? Because DHS does have services, or at least they have, well, they've cut them back recently and have not really reopened. But Department of Human Services has a Children and Youth Mental Health Committee. And they might be somebody to talk to about where to go, how to get started, especially for kids who really, you see real problems with. They might not be able to help because it's usually for your lower, they'll help everybody, but it's going to be on a sliding scale as to what you can afford and can't afford and who they have available. But if nothing else, you can get an assessment done and they will assess you right then and there. So that's an important thing. And they've got, the mobile units. And so that's a group you might want to talk to and find out the information, because that's always been lacking, just the communication between the schools and DHS. So
it'll be interesting to hear the experience of my peers, because my understanding is they're very, very stretched thin right now with all of the needs of all the students. So yeah, that definitely use their resources all the time, and just knowing it's a little bit harder than normal this year.
They are stretched thin, but my feeling now, since I've been through, since I lived it, is go ahead and do it anyway. At least you've got it in, and if it's somebody who really should be in the system, if nothing else, they will be in the system, and in the long run, that pays off, no matter what kind of help they're getting, if any. But once they're in that system, if it's a really permanent, long-term problem, then you're talking Social Security and everything else later on down the road. So it's an interesting way to get in, and they might be able to offer services at least temporarily.
Thank you, Marguerite, for the plug of Behavior Health Bureau with DHS. I appreciate that, and you are correct that we are operating at an emergency prioritization, which is a reduced capacity. We never closed, so we have always remained open. But it has slowed down in terms of our capacity to screen. And your advice is correct, is that if there is a concern from a parent or a teacher, please do refer. That main number, we do all screenings, and then we help you get through with the services you need. But we are really, really down staff, and that of course impacts our ability to open and sustain cases. Thank you.
Excellent. I just want to say hi to Christine. Christine, if you could just unmute and just introduce yourself quickly, then we're going around the group and talking about for staff, especially what the needs, what you're seeing, what can the community do, everything that you can think of. But I'm Judy Haddon. I'm part of the Youth Mental Health and Wellness Committee and Student Services Advisory Committee. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
All right, thank you, Judy. So I'm Christine Katcher. I'm the social worker at Dorothy Ham Middle Schools. And I have been working for the county this is my 35th year as a social worker for Arlington County. I see some of my friends here. It's good to see you, yes. And I don't know if you want me to give my comments now or just stop.
You could just wait for a minute and we'll keep going to the other people who were doing it, and that'll give you a chance to sort of catch up, catch your breath a little bit.
Okay.
That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Elise, did we finish with you, Elise?
No, I think Jackie had her hand up though.
Oh, Jackie had her hand up. That was where we were.
Yes, she does.
Yes, Jackie, there you are. It keeps moving around.
Both for the current and as we go through, one of the things that we all know is that there are waiting lists everywhere. But one of the things that we're having difficulty with is quantifying the volume on the waiting lists. And that's another reason why people should go ahead and try to get on the lists with DHS if they can. But also, if each of you, when you speak, could be more specific about where the long waiting lists are, what types of services. You mentioned therapists, but if it's particular programs that have the waiting lists that are daunting for you, if you could mention those. So, and then the reason is, as we're working on Marcus Alert, we want to be trying to prioritize. And one of the areas that seems to be getting less attention is youth.
Thank you, Jackie. Okay, Elise, you want to go ahead?
Sure, thanks. So again, I'm at Williamsburg Middle School, and I think each school is going to have a kind of a different story based on their population. I have a population that does have quite a bit of their own resources. So I don't think our population, we have to kind of avail ourselves as much with DHS as some other schools do. However, we do have, like Susan, when she was talking, we have some universal truths. Just like Susan, we did find that our students are coming in, and so for mental health, they have a lower tolerance than we typically used to see with uncomfortable emotions. So it's really bringing that language to them of how to tolerate uncomfortable emotions and how to tolerate differing opinions, and sort of that idea of, like, thoughts aren't as Jonathan Dalton says, thoughts aren't facts and feelings are temporary. So it's just really helping them navigate that and the social interactions as well. And just like Susan, we've seen sort of that also getting them used to school. And I sort of more attribute that to being at home. They weren't tasked with the same skills of kind of inhibiting impulses and things like that. So we see more impulsive behaviors than we typically would, and I think depending on how they come out will result in things that are more difficult to deal with than with others. So it ranges obviously from like just goofy impulsive behavior of kids to really dangerous things such as getting in fights or substance use. We have, as you know, APS has an amazing staff of substance abuse counselors, and we're very lucky that ours goes into every PE class every quarter and goes into all the elementary schools as other substance abuse counselors do, just to give kids the language and give kids the knowledge to help them with that. Tomorrow night, along with Yorktown's substance abuse, she's doing another parent presentation that she'd done at Kenmore as well. So I think that that's just really helpful to kind of get the language out and make it less of a taboo topic for kids and for parents. I think for us is building more and more collaborations with parents, community, and us, so that we're all supporting each other with common goals and common skills that we can help kids learn and support them with, I think is the biggest thing. Our main focus this year has been connecting with trusted adults and not just relying solely on the student services staff for that. So really giving teachers and kind of empowering teachers with language and kind of helping them get out of the discomfort of maybe talking about those topics with students, so that it becomes really normative for kids to go to more adults and have as many trusted adults in the school as they possibly can to go to for us. But I think for what we've seen generally for our students is really just building that tolerance for really uncomfortable emotions, from anger to boredom to you know, any of the really heightened emotions that might get them unregulated.
Thank you. I know we're going to be coming back with some other questions if we can get some time for that, because I can think of some myself. But does anybody have any questions right now, or should we go on to Jenny? It's okay. All right, Jenny.
Thank you all. And Elise, what you said was good starting point, because I'm not serving a middle school now, but I did reach out to some of my school psychologist colleagues to just share a bit about middle school as well as elementary school. And similar to what Elise had shared, is just the school psychologists are seeing a pretty significant increase in both internalizing and externalizing behaviors and emotions this year, and supporting not only students who receive counseling through the special education process, but both general education and students in special education. And a lot of what the concerns are presenting as is increases in anxiety, social skills deficits, self-regulation difficulties, just disengaging in class, and excessive device usage. And along with that, increased difficulties focusing. Some of the school psychologists mentioned that they've noticed just some of the middle school students having a disregard for or difficulty following the school structure. Kids that were home for 1.5 years, and then all of a sudden they have to pay attention, sustain focus, interact in a positive way with their peers for 90 minutes. And that has presented a challenge for many of the middle schoolers. Hopefully Elise and the TJ counselor can shed more light on that. And then just the fact that parents are working really long hours and making up time for lost jobs or lost hours that they've experienced, and just the supervision leaves some of our youth at risk. And then I think also what some of the school psychologists shared is that, just for example, like in 8th graders, there've just been a lot of missed natural consequences for social behaviors. Drama was always a prevalent topic in middle school, but it seems like with the lack of social experiences and learning that you kind of experience incrementally throughout middle school, that's been more, those social setbacks have been more challenging to deal with. Some of them also mentioned an increase not only in substance use, but also in self-harm and cutting behaviors. And really, it seems that adaptive coping skills seem to be lacking for a lot of our students. I know a lot of the psychologists mentioned they've just had an increase in the number of one-on-one sessions they've had, the number of intervention groups that have been implemented this year, and they are using primarily a lot of groups targeted specifically at increasing internalizing coping skills, self-regulation, communication, and working on stress management. they've noticed an uptick also in just students and parents reaching out for support through flash passes or through increased 504 and special ed meetings, or just simply consultation for how to support their students. I know at the elementary school level, we are also seeing an increase in social, emotional, and behavioral dysregulation across SPED and non-SPED students. And the need to learn adaptive coping strategies is pretty significant. The increased challenges means that what happens is, because of how many staff are in the schools, we're often supporting the kids in most severe need or the kids in crisis. And this really causes some of our other students to be missed, because the words "putting out fires" was used by a lot of my colleagues. And that's psychologists, social workers, and counselors alike. So we're not necessarily able to run as many tier 2 structure groups because we're pulled in different directions for crises. Some of the elementary psychologists and counselors also mentioned to me that they're seeing more overt racism that's requiring intervention this year. And just, we have different programs and activities to support students, but we're also consulting more with teachers as well. And I think frustration tolerance among grownups and students is lower. And I think when behaviors are chronic and overwhelming, it puts a lot of pressure on our teachers. So we do spend a lot of time kind of brainstorming and debriefing and processing through that. I know as psychologists this year, we're all working really hard to help with functional behavior assessment data collection. There's an increase in need for more concerning behaviors that are requiring functional behavior analysis. And we're also just helping teachers with general classroom management as a result of some of these needs, and also consulting with special education teachers to write really meaningful goals for IEPs that connect to the data and the student needs. I think a challenge is that our social workers, a lot of them are only part-time in the schools. And for some of the psychologists, we're being pulled 1 or 2 or maybe even more days a week to help out with the vacancies across the other schools. Some of our schools do have vacancies in school psychologists. And so we are having to cover for our coworkers. And we also support kind of non-school psychology mandated activities. So for example, a few of us are trained to facilitate youth mental health first aid, but the cost of doing that is that we're out of our schools. 2 of us are serving as 504 coordinators. And so the cost of doing that is that we're not focused on the school psychology work. There really is nowhere to refer students, especially students who have just logistics in financial resources or being able to get from point A to point B. School-based DHS isn't accepting new clients. Sequoia is not accepting new clients. Most of the intensive in-home places are completely full. And so we, especially at the elementary level, have noticed that we're having to absorb those needs. Students really do crave adult attention and relationships with adults at school. So we're really trying to host different lunch groups and just meeting individually with students to just help them practice their social skills and coping skills needs. And then there are attendance challenges as well. And I think I can stop there. That was a lot.
That was a lot. Yeah, a lot to work on, huh? Yeah. You've got to, all of you have such big jobs, big important jobs. Let's see. Kathy, is it okay if I go to Christine, our last social, what do I want to say, student services, school-based person, Kathy Pamphil, is that okay?
Oh, of course.
Okay. Christine,
Yes.
do you
thank
share what you're seeing and feeling and working on, please?
Sure. I just have to say ditto to everything Jenny said. I think actually I feel like you've covered every single point that I was thinking about. So if I could just underscore it all. I thought maybe I would just talk a little bit more about organic things that are happening based on those elements you were talking about, Jenny. For example, it seems as if every case that comes to my attention, whether it's through attendance or a behavior concern that comes from a teacher, or admin talking about, again, behavior regarding a student just generally in the school, everything seems to be enhanced. Everything is much more demanding, more critical, more pressing than I've seen in the 35 years I've been working for the school system. So for example, I'll just give you an example. Today, there's a student who started as first an attendance concern, and then it developed into more general behavior at school, then behavior at home. So now working as a consultant to the parent. Now it has developed into something that involves the courts and legal matters. I was coming late here because I was doing a home visit with a probation officer, and each thing multiplies, many times over, so that it seems as if every case that's brought to our attention requires significantly more time than before because it's multifaceted. And we want to do right by the children. We want to serve them in a complete way and not be putting Band-Aids, but in a holistic way, support the children. So the caseloads of social workers and psychologists and counselors is extremely high. And one thing I would emphasize that Jenny mentioned is that the resources in the community have diminished. And again, for the less resourced parents, those that don't have private insurance, it's almost non-existent. And I'll add one thing that also disappeared with Virginia Tech had a counseling center that had a sliding scale that would go to 0. And they frequently served us when Department of Human Service wasn't available or a different low cost option. And they're closing their doors, I learned, next month. So it just one after another, the possible resources to our less resourced parents have diminished or disappeared. So then the onus goes to us. And we're doing our very best to serve. I have to say, I was shocked when I heard that potentially the number of psychologists and social workers were going to be cut for this following year. And I can't imagine how that'll happen.
I'm in a meeting, please.
Pardon me? Oh, sorry.
No, he's talking.
Anyway, yeah. And again, Jenny was talking about the different levels. I mentor some social workers that are on the elementary level. I'm working on middle school, but they're elementary, and their caseloads are extraordinary. So we should be very proud. We have some very hardworking, very professional staff, but I think the caseloads are getting to a point where I don't think we can serve the kids in as complete and conscientious way as we would hope.
Thank you. And Kirsten, I missed your question. Didn't you have a question? Oh, your hand's up. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy, is this a good time for you to?
Yeah,
Kathy
sure.
Hampton?
Just to say that what I'm here hoping that I can help a couple of community organizations, which are advocacy organizations, see specifically what they can advocate for. Let me say, first of all, that VOICE, that stands for, if you, some of you will know about it, others, it's Virginians Organized for Interfaith Community Engagement. There are about 50 religious and also civic organizations that are part of VOICE. And the organization right now has two primary focuses. One of those is housing, and the other one is mental health. So it's not, I'm not going to be able to say anything specific about support for middle school problems, but this is an organization that typically goes to the governor and therefore looks for things that could be done at the state level or works within the individual counties. And the problem is that they've got to find what they refer to as a winnable issue, something that is with feasible, that you could make some specific that you could make happen within the next, year or so. So right now, their VOICE is in a research stage. They're trying to find, what is that? What are these winnable issues? What are they going to say when they have the next meeting with the governor? So one of the particular things they've backed in the past was the crisis receiving center idea. But then there was a focus on trying to what do you do for underserved communities, specifically for communities that are not even English speaking. Recently, one idea that I saw somebody floating is that apparently in Montgomery, maybe some of you know about this, in Montgomery County, there is some effort underway where mental health professionals are mentoring leaders in the Latino community and then supervising what those leaders do. So in other words, it's another one of those things where you just don't have the professionals, but the question is, can you take advantage of relationships that exist that are leaders in the community who don't know how to do this, but could possibly be guided by professionals and thus multiply what the numbers of kids who could be reached. So I'm sitting here taking notes, listening to you all. The other group is Arlington Mental Health and Disabilities Alliance, which some of you, I'm sure, have heard of that one. Just to show you how high community interest is in this, on the 13th, they had a forum. In fact, maybe there's even a couple of you here who were speakers at that forum, but it had 70 people who tuned into that Zoom session. That's remarkable. I mean, so it's not like the community doesn't know. I think we know, and you guys are doing, it's hard for us to imagine how we can never understand the dimensions of what you're trying to handle out there. But community advocates right now have got to settle on something that they can go after for you rather than to beat our breasts and say, this is awful. So that's what we're looking for right now, winnable issues. And so I'll sit here and write down whatever I can to try to help us see where to go and how to support you.
Thank you, Kathy. Anybody else have something right now? Just how do we figure out the needs, the biggest needs that the community can help with? I mean, one is we need more mental health staff in the schools, and here they're talking about cutting 2 psychs and 2 psychs and 2 social workers. Yeah. And somehow, I mean, there is a letter has been put together, and we can get that. You just have to send it. People have to send it to, it's very easy to get it to the right place. You don't have to send a copy to every school board member or anything like that. So we can work on those kinds of things. But are there things that schools could, that staff could, I don't know, the community could do, the greater community, to help staff with some of these things, to relieve you of some of the things so you have time for the really important stuff? And most of your stuff is really, really important, but I'm just trying to figure out what direction we could go to encourage people to help out.
Yeah, I have a simple thought, and I'm not thinking of a professional doing this task, but I think an increased number of mentors in the community, adult mentors that we could, sort of a pool that have been vetted, that we could tap into for students who need that kind of support. And there are many.
Yes, we have a lot of people who are just kind of there waiting to be asked, I think. And
yeah, so I learned today of some groups that I actually were not aware of that are available for mentoring, but I would say even increased numbers from those, and then making it easy access for us so that we can connect families to these mentors. And again, a trustworthy pool.
Yes. Elisa?
Thank you, Judy. Well, on behalf of NAMI, I wanted to say that Michelle Best and I and Naomi Verdugo and I lead parent support groups for parents of kids with issues in Arlington 4 times a month. And that we meet by Zoom on Sunday evenings for parents of students pre-K through 12th grade, and then for the 11th to 12th graders through those in the years thereafter, up to about 30, we meet on Sunday afternoons from 1 to 3. Yesterday, we had 22 families present. We have a lot of participation where both parents are on the calls, whereas when we met in person in churches in Arlington, one had to stay home to be on call and on duty. So I feel this has been a benefit here. But I want to just, if I have a minute, Judy, could I give some feedback of what we've been hearing in the last?
Please do. Yes.
One, we hear a lot of overlap between autism, those on the autism spectrum, the full spectrum, and mental health and mental illness. We hear a lot of issues about gender identity, especially in the autism community. And they feel very much that they are buttonholed by autism or contained by mental health issues or gender issues. They don't get a sense of the whole person being attended to. And all of these issues lead to depression. And what we like to use is, I know the technical term is school refusal, but that is guilt-based and shaming, because our students who have mental health challenges don't willfully want to skip school. They cannot rise above their anxiety, their depression, or the consequences of their medication. They want to be there. Some go to school, but then hide out all day because they cannot face the crowd or the teachers and the judgment and the ridicule. So we use instead anxiety-induced school refusal. And I think that would be a big step forward in the school community, rather than just going, well, it's school refusal. Well, no, that it's not. They're not playing hooky to go catch a game at the Nats, right? They're not. Many of them are stuck in bed. Some won't leave their rooms. They're very ill. And we're casting further shame on them. And it isn't helpful. It's not on the recovery path. So that's a big thing. I will also say we're getting an awful lot of parents whose ADHD, depressed, anxiety kids are feeling dumb and like failures at school. And I really, we encourage everyone possible to get instructional studies on their course request form for next year if they can, because they lost so much organizational brain structuring, day structuring, and they're overwhelmed, and then they just quit because they can't figure out how to get themselves back in shape for school on Monday. You know, they fall apart on Friday, and that, you know, I used to refer to it with my kids as you need a spatula. You're either scraping them off the ceiling or you're peeling them up off the floor. And neither condition is ideal for your middle schooler. So, or high school or elementary. We will also are seeing an awful lot of suicide and self-harm. Many of them do not want to tell the schools. There's ideation, suicidality, and an awful lot of attempts. And that's just really, really sad. Anxiety is in everything, and academic pressure to make up for what was lost last year is not helping the situation. They all feel they can't catch up, they can't go fast enough. And I understand that we do an awful lot of counseling during our sessions on pure wisdom of 504s and IEPs and what they mean legally and how to navigate the structure. And we meet on Zoom at any parent's request in the evenings. And we are probably doing 2 or 3 a week now, one-on-one, trying to help families learn the special education process quickly, especially as their kids are in hospitals and they don't know what to do. But I want to re-emphasize that even if a family has money and insurance, there are no therapists easily available. And even if you have money, in the good old days and DHS took you and you had insurance, DHS does not take insurance for children. So unlike with adults, once you turn 18, DHS will take your Blue Cross Blue Shield card. If you're 17, they won't take it. And that has got to change. For years, decades, I've been asking for this. I'm pretty tired of it. But that has to come from within the county and from the community to say enough is enough. You have contracts with Blue Cross Blue Shield and with Aetna. It's time to make it happen across the population. I see it as nothing less than discrimination, age discrimination. There's no reason that a 17-year-old's insurance card is not accepted when 4 months later it will be. I just don't. Anyhow, I get pretty agitated, quite frankly, because as you all know, mental illness is contagious. If you live with it, the entire family is affected and infected by it. And we are not stopping this with a face mask. There's a lot of bullying going on because of face masks, a lot of bullying going on about how kids are behaving, what they look like. We have become a less kind and a less gentler community. And that breaks my heart. So that's what I would like to say to you. And thank you very much for the moment.
Thank you, Elisa.
Judy, there's a couple of hands up. I'm not sure if you see
Okay.
it. Catherine
Oh.
and Dr. Devaney have their
Okay.
hands up.
All right. Kristen, do you want to go ahead?
Oh, it's okay. I think Catherine had her hand up first.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I was trying to get Adora in and I missed it. I was looking over this direction. Sorry.
Let me lower my hand for right now.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, Kathy.
That's all right.
Okay, so I just wanted to speak to Elisa, your comment. I just it's so appreciated. You know, everything that we're hearing about what's happening in the schools. I really appreciate your comment about school refusal. Yes, I think even, you know, families who are experiencing a child with this school avoidance, for lack of a better term, right, are calling it school refusal also because they don't know how else to refer to it. And I absolutely agree with you. These children are very, very ill. And I appreciated your spatula comment, right? I'm saying this because I'm working with a couple of families right now who are struggling, and it is so it's heartbreaking. It is truly, truly heartbreaking. So I was asking in the comment if your group, and you answered the question, but if your group has families with students who are struggling, with students right now who I'm not going to say won't go to school, who can't go to school. So, thank you. I think that's something that our school-based professionals here didn't mention, but I'm sure, right? I'm sure that is something that you are seeing. I know that you are. So thanks for that.
Kathy?
Yeah, so going back to the topic of mentoring, I'm wondering if anybody here has seen something that worked. I particularly think about retirees, and I wonder how they're being involved, retirees from the school system. For instance, during the pandemic, we formed a group of former ESOL teachers because there were so many kids losing English proficiency or certainly not acquiring it. And we called ourselves the grandmothers, the abuelitas, and we actually formed a couple pods. I mean, it wasn't wonderful, but we had, 25, 35 kids who got something out of that. We were retirees, but we were also trained, we were professionals. So what's going on? Or do you have retirees coming back in who know how to do the stuff that you all do? And I wonder whether we could pursue it.
Catherine, related to your question, there is an Askable Adult training that is being put out by Project Peace, which is that's a new name for an Askable Adult, but I think it was before, it was a Trusted Adult. So this is a training that's pretty well put together based on, kind of evidence. I don't know if it's evidence-based, but it's very well-known kind of mentoring programs. That there's 3 trainings coming up, and I can put the contact person directly, in contact with this group. I know that Prevention is hosting one of the trainings at the end of April, but it should be in the next couple months. There should be 3 trainings where we're trying to recruit adults in the community who would step up, who are interested in wanting to mentor. And this is pretty good training. I think it's 4 hours to get the foundational knowledge of mental health, of listening skills, of engaging their suicide, quick suicide assessment as well in there. So I can definitely connect you guys here with Project Peace in that effort.
Yeah, absolutely. I do know that, people who have retired who are watching what's happening right now, I'm sure that you have hooked a few of them back into the system, but there may be others who'd be willing to do something for a few hours a week.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Let's see, Jackie, you had something, your hand's been up a while.
Yes. It's not an answer, Elisa, but I did ask the question about insurance at our Civic Federation Marcus Alert presentation. And Deborah Warren said that they had been pursuing that and had successfully gotten an agreement with Blue Cross Blue Shield to take their insurance. However, because they didn't have enough service providers, they were having to prioritize services, so they weren't getting to people who had insurance providers. That's, I think, I'm basically interpreting it, but since we do have a tape, I can look up the exact question and send you the answer.
Thanks, Jackie. Susan, did you have something? Did you have your hand up?
Thank you. Yeah, I was just going to respond to to Catherine's question about how we could use mentors or how they're being used right now. And I just wanted to say we're so thankful that we have some retired APS teachers helping out with a math clinic after school on Wednesdays. And that is phenomenal because that's, we spoke to all this academic pressure of getting caught up. And I think math is one of those places where there's extra pressure to feel like you haven't missed out on these concepts and now you're behind forever. So we have a great team of tutors helping out in that regard. And then the other thing, I found myself a couple times a week just having informal board game groups with kids, like not on the screen, not video games, but just board game groups, and having them learn that natural social interaction and how to win and lose and ask each other about their day and that kind of thing, and having volunteers who would want to do after school board game club or something like that, I think would be phenomenal.
Great idea.
Thank you for offering.
Yeah, great idea. John, you have your hand up.
Well, I've heard a lot about the concerns of the students. What I wanted to ask is, for the mental health professionals in the schools, this is affecting you, and what should we be advocating to help you so you can do your job better? Because I can't imagine how you're living through this, but you are. That's why you're here telling us. What can we do?
I think ensuring that our ratios for student to mental health professionals is met. Even on a great day, Arlington's ratio for school psychologists and social workers to students is higher than what's recommended nationally. And so when we're facing shortages, it just increases our caseloads. And as the needs become more complex, as you can imagine, having, 10 kids on a caseload for counseling on a previous year would be a lot, but add in all of the complexities that students are facing now, as well as just the atmosphere of the schools is bigger. So I think making sure that we have the opportunity to hire experienced staff. The budget season for Arlington and hiring is later than a lot of our local school divisions. And so we do miss out on a lot of quality, highly experienced, highly qualified school psychologists and social workers, because they do accept positions in other school divisions because they are offered the job first. And our human resources can be challenging to, I don't even know how to say that diplomatically, but it can be a challenge for new hires. So I think something that would really help is just advocating for those positions and encouraging the school board and county board and whoever else to allow departments to hire sooner. We've lost a large portion of our interns in the last few years because they have accepted positions in other divisions. So we've trained them and then they work in other school divisions.
Frustrating. Thank you. I'm glad we're recording this so we have everything you're saying, so I can.
I apologize to human resources. You're wonderful.
Oh, no. They're not going to see this. They're not going to see this. I just mean I would forget some things. No. Well, I don't even know where to go. Jenny, do you have something?
I did want to mention something that has been an issue for our staff for the last 2 to 3 years. School psychologists and social workers used to be paid on the master's plus 30 scale because of our the number of graduate hours we obtain. And new staff are not being offered that pay scale. So it does impact them as well.
I think, Jenny, that only applies to psychologists, because I don't think that was ever true for social workers.
Social workers with the plus 30, but psychologists in general, yes.
There's so much that the general public doesn't know about teachers and mental health staff and everyone who's in schools and what it takes to get their jobs done and take care of the kids. and help all the kids learn. I mean, there's so much. There's a lack of awareness. They're just, and parents now are busy, and everybody's busy, but I don't know how because we need more than just a few of us sending our letters to the superintendent. We have a draft letter that will get to everyone that we can think of.
Judy, you've got 3 people with their hands up.
Oh, I do.
Kirsten, Kristen, and Jackie.
Sorry, I need to be quiet. Kristen.
Sure. I was just going to say, and Jenny, thank you for saying that. Well, first, John, thank you for asking that question, because I think all of us probably just stood here kind of stunned a little bit, because I know we're all here for the students, of course, right? And in order for us to do our job effectively and to the best of our ability, we need to, it's like the oxygen mask, right? Take care of ourselves. So just you asking what we need is, I know, very appreciated. So thank you. And I think, again, just stunned for like, So Jenny, I'm glad you opened up speaking about the ratios, because that's important. APS did, I will give them a plug, they did move up staffing a little bit earlier this year, knowing that, yes, we lose candidates because we are later than our surrounding counties. There's just, there's no question about that. So I did just want to say that I think it's being recognized, and my hope is that we continue to move this message forward and it will get better. But like you said about the ratios, and then now being cut to social workers and school psychologists, I mean,
yeah,
I don't know. I know there's other hands, so I'll just add to that with the counselor ratios. With the school counselor ratios, APS is aligned with what the national recommended ratio is, the state, but they're not aligned with what the national recommendation is. So Susan, you could tell me, I'm not sure what it is. I mean, I guess APS is 375-1 for counselors, but ASCA recommends 250-1. That's right? Okay. So just so you know where we are there, and high school and middle school is a little bit better probably than elementary school with ratios, but it is the same with counselors, to just be aligned with that national recommended ratio.
And we've worked on that. Alicia could probably help me remember how far back it was that we started working on that issue, because it was clear that, I mean, it was ridiculous what the ratio was for Arlington staff.
Right.
But we'll just keep working on it. I think awareness among parents and people on these committees, and we can talk to school board members, we can say things that, it's harder for you to say. But Jackie, you have your hand up.
Yeah, sorry to keep asking these questions, but again, with watching how DHS is trying to deal with the lack of availability of staffing, I'm first of all shocked to see that APS is eliminating positions. I can't understand that, because they're not school psychologists, but DHS can't hire enough people. So I don't understand how we could have too many at APS. That's just beyond belief. There should be definitely a conversation about which jobs can take on, some of the areas where there are real long waiting lists and so on, and where the caseload is too heavy. The other thing is, I think it sounds like it's time to do another salary comparison, both timing, as you're mentioning, but also salary comparison with other jurisdictions. Again, on the mental health side, on DHS, we know that they've done a comparison. And part of our problem is that Arlington's salary range is lower, and we have some of our neighbors poaching our people, and everybody's poaching everybody. So it's hard to keep up. So knowing that information for the schools and how that compares to DHS as well as other jurisdictions is important. And then the other thing is, I'd like to know more about what the retention stats are for APS mental health providers of all kinds, psychologists, social workers, all of these services we're talking about, because that's another big issue that DHS has been mentioning, as well as law enforcement. But those are, and they're doing both signing incentives and retention incentives on the DHS side. So if they're doing those things, and that has had a success, they've begun to stem the tide of people leaving. But we're in a highly competitive environment, and APS needs to, their human resources needs to be on that edge, or else you're going to lose the people you have. And that, it's a dire warning, I know, but it needs to be some advocacy to be doing these comparisons and think about how to, step up the game, I guess. Thanks.
Kirsten, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you. I wanted to refer back to something that Elise mentioned about how they were empowering teachers with language to make them more comfortable and being more normative, that the teachers could teach some of these skills, because self-regulation is a skill that can be taught. Relationship skills is a skill that can be taught. Self-awareness is a skill that can be taught. All of these core competencies of social emotional learning, I think even, this is just a question that, like, if anybody thinks that might be another avenue to reach kids daily, because mentors, I worked with a mentoring group called Everybody Wins, and it does reading mentors, and they were once a week or every other week. And that's good, but the people that are with the kids every day are the teachers. And, even, I don't know what ratio we would have to have, that they would have enough psychologists and social workers and counselors to be with kids every day to help them learn these skills that they might not have gotten in their own environments. I know I didn't learn all of these at home. I had to learn them, in other ways. And, people have strengths and weaknesses, but I'm just wondering about these social emotional skills, and if that might be a good foundation if teachers could be empowered to cover some of this, and that might help, like what Jenny said about putting out fires. Then there wouldn't be so many fires because kids would be internalizing these skills. Anyway, that's my comment and question.
Jenny, did you have your hand up?
And I think Christine could speak a little bit better to this because it's her school, but one of my colleagues did mention that at their middle school, they do have an SEL counselor who is teaching lessons in TA for all of the homerooms, and that it has been well received. So Christine, I don't know if you have follow-up.
Yeah, so we have a dedicated counselor who is developing SEL lessons and pushes them out through the TAs. It's the equivalent of homeroom, giving all the materials to the teachers to then provide to their children. So Kirsten, it's a bit what you were talking about. So it's not that the counselor is circulating through all the classes, it would be impossible, but rather giving all the materials and instructions how to do it. And on the same day, the kids are going through the same lessons. So there is a great effort in a coordination of teaching SEL.
Do y'all see that as something that would help, like, support mental wellness, and maybe there wouldn't be as many fires and as many kind of, I don't know if you've seen it be effective.
Yeah, well, I would say this, the kids are very familiar with the concepts, so they're getting it through these SEL lessons in TA, and then also the health curriculum tries to address some of that as well. So when I'm working with kids in my room, and this is some, direct counseling, and I'm teaching them those skills, they have some level of familiarity with it. So that's a positive, and it's showing that it's making an impact You know, the regularity and dedication that kids are applying to learning these skills and practicing them, you know, is another question. But they know they exist, and they know how to probably access platforms where they could practice them. You know, there are some really excellent social media kind of platforms that they can look at. You know, there's one called Calm, you've probably heard of. And when I talk to kids, they'll say, yeah, I do that sometimes. And they got the idea through school, through their teachers. But again, it's all those skills need to be practiced and done with some vigilance to be effective.
Yeah. Kathy, you had a question or a comment? Oh, where are you? You're on mute. You're muted. Sorry.
I'm so sorry. The teachers, as everybody here knows, because you're working with teachers, are really juggling so many needs. Particularly, it strikes me, staff development. I've heard people say, you know, we just need to give people a little more information about how to work with second language learners. You know, we need to give them more coursework. You know, well, the reality is, these guys are already, as everybody here knows, trying to do things that range over a broad spectrum of needs. And so they're crying for help, and they're saying, who can come help us? And what I'm personally hearing here is the need to try to mobilize some volunteers, and I'm hoping somebody will put in the chat some more information about the organizations that are out there and people with experience with those organizations, so that I can see if I can push it out there.
Thanks, Kathy. Susan, did you have something?
Kathy pretty much just said it. I was just going to say,
Okay.
I think we have a lot of these resources, just like Christine was saying, but what they need is an opportunity to build relationships and practice those skills. So, yep, said it. Thank you.
Kristen, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I'm not muted, right? Okay, good. I have some really big news. I've been, dying to share. Maybe not everybody here knows yet, but we did have a new position that was just filled in APS under the Office of Academics, the ATSS SEL specialist position. Just started a week ago, last Monday. So it's a brand new position, and it is under the Office of Academics. So what I know about it is very exciting, because we're going to be working very, very closely with this person. Her name is Jennifer Gross, and she did come from the Office of Equity and Inclusion, sorry. And so she's very, very knowledgeable in equity, as overlaps and is integrated so much with SEL. So we're really excited for her to bring her skills and knowledge. But the reason I'm saying this is because we're talking so much about the importance of staff being trained, right, in SEL. And I think that's where this overlap is going to happen. I think that this new specialist is going to be working with staff specifically, right? So student services is still going to own SEL and SEL curriculum that we produce and we bring into the classrooms ourselves. But it's going to overlap with the training that this new specialist is going to bring staff. And a lot of this, I think we're going to see unfold with the new Panorama SEL survey that's coming out, and that just opened today too. And so that's with grades 3 through 12. And so this summer, I think that's when a lot of work is going to take place. That's when we're going to have a lot of our professionals from student services working in groups this summer with the ATSS specialist to put into place tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 support based on the data that we're getting from the SEL survey. And so having said that, I know I feel like I have to put this caveat in there. We know this already because we're talking about SEL, specific SEL skills and competencies that you can learn, right? That we were just talking about, that can be taught and that staff can help also implement these teaching skills for the students. But that the SEL screener is just that. It is on SEL competencies and it is not a mental health screener. So something that we just want to be very clear about is, and that's one of the reasons we're calling it SEL survey and not a screener. So just wanted to put that out there because language is so important and something we've been talking about. And so I just want to make sure I'm practicing that myself. So thanks.
And the parents need to have more information on SEL. They need, so that when their kids come home and they're sort of poo-pooing, you know, what's going on, they can help them understand a little bit better and reinforce what's going on. I don't know if that's how much that is in the plans for APS and SEL, you know, to work with the parents.
Sure. I mean, I'll add to that, but I see that Marguerite has her hand up. But just that, you know, so the parents are going to be getting an individualized kind of data summary of where their students, not the individual answers and responses that the students are giving for this SEL survey, but parents are going to be getting a report, kind of like a little summary of where they fall in a range of different areas of, let's say, self-awareness or self-regulation, something like that. And so along with that, what you're saying is, I don't believe that point, they're going to be getting specific strategies that they can help teach and work with their children on, but that is where we're going to be coming into. You know, I think it's just, it's like the whole child effort, right? So it's everything. So yes, I'm glad that you.
Yeah, it's not going to work if it's just your job,
right?
You know,
Yep.
it just won't work. It's creating a culture in the school and at home. Marguerite, I'm sorry, I missed your hand.
Don't even worry about it. Has the population of the schools this year gone down? Does anybody know? Lynn might know. You know, because the county has,
Go ahead.
has the school population gone down this year since everybody went back in?
School should know that. Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
I was just going to say, I mean, it really varies. As a whole, I don't believe that it did. I think that's where some of the staffing cuts have come from, is from those projections for the students. If there were some kind of restructuring, you know, I'm forgetting the word, but you know what I mean, kind of neighborhood schools just changing. And so that impacted the numbers a little bit and some of the staffing, but as a whole, I don't think so, especially because a lot of our students, our students from the virtual learning program are going back to their school, going back to their home schools. There's just a very, very small handful who are going to stay virtual. So I don't think so.
There's a chart in the county budget materials. I'm sorry to cut in, but it looks like,
that's okay.
If I remember off the top of my head, I think there was a little bit of a dip, and the projection is that there's going to be an overall increase. There might have been a dip in the last couple of years, but I checked that out specifically with respect to the cuts of positions. And it looks like we're going to end up with more kids, you know, than ever by next year, I think.
I just, you know, I bring that up just because the county's got this bad habit of when they start cutting, you know, they see that things have gone down, they start cutting. The first thing they start cutting are things like the mental health, because they're not real big believers in it. And it's a real drain on them. Personally, I guess, I don't know. It's just a drain on them. They don't see it as a big thing because, you know, we're aiming for college, and we need to be that county where everybody goes to college and everybody goes to the Ivy League and everybody does all this kinds of stuff. And that's where they've always gone that way. There was a huge study, at least 12 years ago, maybe, that just fried the county, just fried it on the way they handled everything in their schools, in their mental health, it was brutal. And the county kind of for a while, you know, went along with it. And this was a study that basically they had to do these things because it was a federal, it was a state. I mean, it was all thrown together. And eventually they just put it under the rug and just went about their business doing whatever they wanted to do. So I think that often the first thing they cut are your mental health people within the schools, because it's difficult. I know it's difficult. I've been there. It's difficult. And they just don't really want to kind of deal with it. Did anybody, just a thing, if anybody still has access to the Washington Post, they had a very horrible, sad article on the last page of the Thursday section. And it has to do with, my son is trying to get expelled. It was the heading. And it was a letter from somebody who had done everything she could and just couldn't get, her son didn't want to go to school. And the kind of telling thing about this was, he did not get along in school. He did not get along with the kids in school. At home, however, he could play with these same kids and everything was fine. And it was like they were really willing to just throw this kid out rather than have to deal with whatever the issues might be at school. I've run into that. I've seen it, been there, done it. It's really, I think that's where the county goes. And that's where the fight needs to come in, is why are you doing this? And why are you ignoring these problems? It has no, and it doesn't solve a damn thing. And I know that, but something, I mean, I don't know. I just, the mentoring is great, but you've got to find the kids too. And a lot of my neighbors ended up pulling their kids out and sending them to private school during the pandemic, because then they realized there were huge issues that they hadn't seen before and had never been brought to their attention. But they could afford to do that.
If I can jump in for a sec, Margaret, I'm not familiar with the article or the study that you mentioned 12 years ago. I've been with the county for maybe 14 years now, and I think from my experience with the clinical team and now prevention and my work with APS the whole time, is that in the past 3 or 4 years, I really feel like both APS and DHS, we're really at the peak of behavioral health and mental health in terms of program development. And I don't think I don't feel there is a non-prioritization of mental health at DHS. If anything, is the opposite, that despite our vacancies now, we're not losing any positions. We're no positions threatened to be lost. We're holding on to the vacancies. We're just trying the best to try to recruit. We're trying to be very creative and not just go the typical routes, but we're trying to put out ads with Comcast, just like how we do PSAs to recruit locally, just to see if there are other folks that we're not getting to with our traditional recruitment ways. So I really do feel that behavioral health, mental health have really been center stage in the past few years between APS and us.
I agree. I mean, because when I first started on these committees, it was just non-existent. Not really non-existent, but it really was not as important. And I was dealing with DHS. I mean, little by little, but it was little by little. I mean, it was just like pulling teeth the whole time, just trying to get people to pay attention. And they stayed at it and they pushed at it. And then finally, the biggest issue was the divide between APS and DHS. There was no communication. So that now has really, both sides have worked on that. And that's going to be really the only way to keep the county moving with mental health, is to keep DHS and APS together on how they handle things, because you can only help each other. And that took a long time, but that was a really big thing. So you're right, Len, that has happened, but oh my God, years ago, I mean, it was hard. It was hard to get information. It was hard to find out where to go. It was hard when your kid was taken out and sent somewhere and you tried to bring them back in. I mean, there was just nothing. It was not good. It's not a good situation. It has changed somewhat. It has changed a good bit. So, and for that, I thank everybody. And you all, the counselors, I wouldn't have your job for anything. So I give you so much credit for working with just a really bad situation. And that's what this has turned into. And hopefully it'll change, maybe like a miracle over the summer. I don't know. But thank you for working at it, because these kids really need it. And Kathy.
We need to let these tired, hardworking student services staff people go eat their dinner and just relax a little bit. We will send you, a link to the notes. We're going to send you a link to the youth mental health and wellness resource guide that we put together last year, and it needs a few updates, but we'll send you links to that. And we can send everybody links to the draft letters that can go to school board members and the superintendent. We need to get the one to the superintendent soon, because I think he makes some decision, I think, right, does something before it gets to the school board members, or I don't know. I don't have the whole schedule in my head, but thank you so very much. And do let us know if there are things that we can, conversations that we can help start. If there's anything that we can do to make a difference for school staff and for families, for kids, do let us know. And thanks so much for giving your time. Kirsten, did you have something you wanted to say?
I see Jenny has her hand up.
Oh,
I
yeah,
just wanted to say, like when Jenny was talking about helping teachers with general classroom management, I think you brought that up. But anyway, it just makes me think of that with what Marguerite was talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. And we do have an army of people out there who want to help. They just don't know how to help. So that's one thing that we can do, is try to figure out how to steer them to training and to individuals, to schools.
Judy, Jenny has her hand up if you want to.
Yeah, Jenny.
I was just going to say thank you for allowing us to be here today. We know that
thank you.
Many of us wouldn't be here if it hadn't been for your advocacy in the last few years. So we really appreciate that. And I just wanted to touch on something that Alyssa had said about in the NAMI meetings. We would love to, if things come up that are of concern, please share that with the school staff, because a lot of the times we don't know how families need our support if they aren't also willing to, come to us or share with us or trust us. So that's a huge piece of it, as well as building trust between the schools and families. And we're always looking for ways to do that and to support our families. And I can only speak for the 504 side, but we're also happy to come share with families about how to navigate that process.
Thank you, Jenny. All right, anybody else have a last thought? Okay, well then, thanks so much to everyone. Thank you so much for your time.
Good night, everyone.
Appreciate it. Good night.
Thank you. Good night. Alicia, great to have you on the call with us tonight. Thank you.
Yes, that was nice.
Hey, Judy, nice to see you. Thank you for letting me attend.
Sure. Good to see you. See you, everyone.